Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the horizon and watched the stars shift on the main screen. After 6 months in deep space, his crew had finally reached the edge of known territory. Earth had sent them to explore, to see what lay beyond the darkness. Nobody expected what happened next. "Captain, we have something on sensors," said Ryan Blake, his second in command. The man's voice was tight with tension. "It's big and it's moving toward us." Jake leaned forward in his chair. "How big?" "3 times our size, sir. Design is nothing like ours." "It's definitely not human." The bridge went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. After 200 years of searching, humanity had finally found someone else in the universe. Jake felt his heart pound in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "Battle stations. Shields up, but hold fire unless I give the order." The alien ship appeared on screen moments later. It looked like a massive crystal, glowing with soft blue light. Beautiful and strange. Nothing about it looked threatening, but Jake had learned long ago that looks could be deceiving. "They're sending a signal, sir," said Amy Carter, the ship's communications officer. She was the best linguist Earth had, picked specially for this mission. "It's a mathematical sequence. Basic first contact protocol." "Send the same sequence back," Jake ordered. What followed was the most important conversation in human history. The alien ship belonged to something called the Galactic Council. The being who spoke to them, a creature made of living crystal named Zekthor, explained that 47 different species lived together in peace across the galaxy. They had rules, laws, and order. War had not existed for 3,000 years. "This is incredible," Amy whispered as she translated. "Captain, they're inviting us to join them." Jake felt a surge of hope. Maybe humanity had finally found its place among the stars. Maybe the centuries of war and struggle were over. "Tell them we're honored. Ask what we need to do." The answer came quickly. Too quickly. Zekthor explained that all species who joined the council had to follow strict rules. They had to give up most of their weapons. They had to allow council ships to patrol their space. They had to accept council law above their own. Most importantly, they could not make any military moves without council permission. Jake's hope began to fade. "Ryan, are you hearing this?" "Yes, sir," Ryan said quietly. "They want us to disarm. 90% of our fleet, according to these numbers." "Captain," Amy said, her face troubled, "they say it's necessary. For peace. Every species does it." Jake looked at the glowing ship on his screen. Something felt wrong. Humanity had fought too many wars, made too many mistakes. They knew what happened to those who gave up their ability to defend themselves. They became victims. "Tell them we need time to discuss this with Earth," Jake said finally. "Tell them we're grateful, but this is too important to decide quickly." Zekthor seemed confused by the delay. The council had never been refused before. But he agreed to wait. His ship would remain nearby while Earth decided. Jake sent a message back to Earth immediately. It would take days for the reply to arrive, but he knew what they would say. No government would agree to disarm completely for strangers, no matter how peaceful they seemed. Over the next week, Jake watched the council ship carefully. Amy worked on translating more of their language. Ryan studied their technology. What they discovered made Jake increasingly nervous. "Captain, they've been scanning us," Ryan reported on the 3rd day. "Deep scans of our weapons, our shields, everything. They didn't ask permission." "Are they a threat?" Jake asked. "Not immediately. But sir, they're mapping our defenses. All of them." Jake felt cold. Why would a peaceful organization need to know our weaknesses? Nobody had an answer. On the 5th day, Amy discovered something worse. She had been listening to communications between the council ship and others in their fleet. "Captain, I think you need to hear this." She played the recording. Even though Jake couldn't understand the alien language, Amy's translation was clear enough. The council was discussing humanity. They called humans primitive, aggressive, dangerous. They were making plans, talking about what to do if Earth refused to join. "They're putting satellites around Earth," Amy said, her voice shaking. "Monitoring stations. They're doing it right now without asking." Jake stood up fast. "How many?" "At least 40. Maybe more." "Captain, they're watching us, tracking our ships, our communications, everything." Ryan pulled up a display showing Earth and the surrounding space. Dozens of small objects had appeared in orbit over the past few days. The council had been busy while pretending to wait for Earth's answer. "They're not asking us to join," Jake said slowly, understanding at last. "They're preparing to force us." "Captain, Earth is sending a message," the communications officer announced. "It's marked urgent." Jake read the message from Earth's government. As he expected, they had refused the Council's terms. But there was more. Earth's leaders had seen the satellites too. They had intercepted Council communications. They knew what was coming. The message was clear. Return to Earth immediately. Prepare for the worst. Jake looked at his crew. They were afraid, but they were ready. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. They would survive this too. Set course for Earth, he ordered. Maximum speed. And send a message to Zekthor. Tell him humanity appreciates the offer, but we choose to remain independent. What do you think they'll do, sir? Amy asked. Jake watched the Council ship on the screen. It hung in space like a beautiful jewel, peaceful and serene. But now he saw it differently. Now he saw the threat beneath the beauty. I think they'll try to teach us a lesson, Jake said. I think they believe we're too primitive to refuse them. They've had peace for so long they've forgotten what it costs. And what does it cost, sir? Ryan asked. Jake smiled, but there was no humor in it. Everything. Peace costs everything. Your strength, your freedom, your ability to say no. The Council has forgotten that. They think peace comes from everyone agreeing, but real peace comes from everyone being too strong to attack. The horizon turned toward Earth and accelerated into the darkness. Behind them, the Council ship followed at a distance, watching, waiting, planning. Jake knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had reached for the stars hoping to find friends. Instead, they had found something far more dangerous. Beings who thought peace could be forced, who thought strength should be surrendered, who thought compliance was the same as cooperation. The galaxy was about to learn a hard truth. Humanity had not climbed to the top of their world by being peaceful. They had done it by being survivors, and survivors never gave up the tools that kept them alive. The war hadn't started yet, but Jake could feel it coming like a storm on the horizon. When it arrived, the galaxy would discover what humanity really was. Not a peaceful species looking for friends, but a race of warriors who had been fighting each other for so long that fighting aliens would almost be easy. The stars grew brighter as the horizon raced toward home. General Chris Hamilton stood in the command center deep beneath Colorado and watched the displays showing Earth's defenses. 3 weeks had passed since Captain Morrison returned with news of the Galactic Council. 3 weeks of desperate preparation. "How many ships do we have ready?" he asked. Secretary Kate Phillips checked her tablet. 240 combat vessels. Everything we can spare. The rest are protecting Earth and the colonies. Chris nodded slowly. It wasn't enough, but it would have to do. Intelligence reports said the Council was gathering a fleet. They called it an enforcement group, but Chris knew what it really was. A punishment. The Council had never been told no before, and they didn't like it. "They don't think we're a threat," Kate said quietly. "The intercepted communications are clear. They think we're children throwing a tantrum." "Good," Chris replied. "Let them think that." A junior officer approached with a new report. "Sir, we've decoded more Council messages. They're planning to disable our satellites and power grids. They call it a lesson. They want to show us what happens when species refuse them." Chris felt anger rise in his chest. The Council spoke about peace, but they were planning to attack civilian infrastructure. They would leave Earth helpless, dependent on their mercy. It was the kind of thing tyrants did, not peacekeepers. "When do they arrive?" he asked. 4 days, sir. They're coming from 3 different directions. 50 ships total. Kate looked worried. That's more than we expected. "Chris, maybe we should try talking again." "Send another message, and we tried talking," Chris said. "They don't want to talk. They want submission." He pulled up a star map showing the Council fleet's approach. They were moving slowly, confidently. They expected Earth to surrender when they saw the size of the force. They had no idea what was waiting for them. "Lieutenant Ben Torres," Chris called out. "Status on the Mars position?" A young pilot's voice came through the speakers. "In position, sir." 50 ships hiding in the asteroid belt. The Council fleet will pass right by us. "Good. Remember, wait for my signal. Let them get close to Earth first." "Yes, sir." Chris had spent 20 years in the military. He had studied every war humanity ever fought. Alexander, Napoleon, Patton, Sun Tzu. He knew that the best victories came from doing what the enemy didn't expect. The Council expected Earth to defend from a fixed position. They expected fear and desperation. Instead, Chris had planned an ambush. The next 4 days moved slowly. Every hour brought the Council fleet closer. Earth civilians didn't know what was coming. The government had decided to keep it quiet to avoid panic. Only military personnel and key leaders knew that humanity might be at war by the end of the week. Jake Morrison had been promoted to admiral and given command of the defense fleet. He stood on the bridge of Earth's largest warship and watched the Council approach. "They're not even trying to hide," Ryan Blake said beside him. "Look at their formation. It's designed for show, not combat." Jake saw what Ryan meant. The Council ships flew in a perfect geometric pattern, like a parade. Beautiful but vulnerable. They had shields, but their weapons were powered down. They really didn't expect a fight. "Admiral, I'm picking up a broadcast from the Council fleet," Amy Carter reported. "They're transmitting on all frequencies. Should I translate?" "Put it through," Jake ordered. A voice filled the bridge. Zekthor again, speaking in that strange musical language. Amy translated in real time. "People of Earth, you have made an unfortunate choice. The Galactic Council brings order and peace to all species. Your refusal to join demonstrates your primitive nature. We will now disable your infrastructure as a corrective measure. This is for your own benefit. When you are ready to accept our guidance, we will restore your systems and welcome you properly." Jake felt his jaw tighten. They actually believed this was helping. They thought humanity needed to be punished into compliance like disobedient children. "Admiral, they're moving into position above Earth," Ryan said. "Their weapons are powering up." "Then we don't wait any longer," Jake said. He opened the command channel. "All ships, this is Morrison. Execute Alpha Strike. I repeat, execute Alpha Strike." Everything happened at once. The 50 ships hiding near Mars burst from the asteroid belt and accelerated toward the Council fleet's rear. Another 100 ships that had been drifting with powered-down systems near Earth's moon suddenly came alive. The final 90 vessels hiding behind orbital platforms revealed themselves. The Council fleet was surrounded in seconds. "Fire," Jake ordered. Humanity's weapons were primitive compared to Council technology, but they worked. Missiles streaked across space. Railguns fired solid metal at incredible speeds. Nuclear warheads detonated against Council shields. The Council ships tried to respond, but they were too slow. Their weapons had been designed for ceremony, for show. They had incredible defensive shields, but their offensive capabilities were weak. Humanity's weapons, built from centuries of killing each other, were devastatingly effective. "Direct hit on their command ship," Ryan reported. "Their shields are down to 40%. "Hit them again," Jake ordered. Ben Torres led his fighter squadron through the Council formation like sharks through a school of fish. The Council had never faced fighter craft before. They tried to target the small ships with their main weapons, but they were too slow, too imprecise. "This is Torres," Ben's voice came through. "Their ships can't track us. It's like shooting practice." Jake watched the battle unfold on his screens. It wasn't a battle. It was a massacre. Within 10 minutes, 15 Council ships were destroyed. Another 20 were crippled. The rest were trying to retreat. "Don't let them escape," Jake ordered. "If even one ship reports back that we're not defending, we lose the advantage." The hunt continued. Human ships pursued the fleeing Council vessels across the solar system. Some tried to surrender, but Jake's orders were clear. No survivors, not yet. Not until Earth was ready. 17 minutes after it began, the battle was over. 50 Council ships had entered Earth's solar system. None left. The debris field stretched from Mars to Earth, glowing metal and shattered crystal tumbling through space. "Casualty report," Jake said quietly. 7 ships damaged, sir. 43 casualties. None fatal." Jake closed his eyes. 43 people hurt, against 50 alien ships. The Council had expected to win without firing a shot. Instead, they had lost everything. "Sir, we're receiving signals from the Council homeworlds," Amy said. Her voice was shaking. "They're broadcasting emergency alerts. They know their fleet is gone." "What are they saying?" Jake asked. Amy listened for a moment, then looked up with frightened eyes. "They're calling us monsters. Savages. They say no species has attacked the Council in 1,200 years. They're declaring humanity a rogue species. They're assembling a grand fleet to destroy us." The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what this meant. They had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. Chris Hamilton's voice came through from Earth. "Admiral Morrison, return to Earth immediately. We need to prepare. If the Council is sending everything they have, we need to be ready." "Understood, sir," Jake replied. He looked at his crew. They had just made history, but nobody was celebrating. Set course for Earth, and send a message to all human colonies. Tell them war is coming. Tell them to prepare. As the fleet turned toward home, Jake thought about what they had done. The Council had come to teach humanity a lesson. Instead, humanity had taught them one. But the cost of that lesson was going to be high. The Council had thousands of ships, dozens of species, and resources beyond counting. Earth had courage, determination, and something the Council had forgotten in 3,000 years of peace. Earth remembered how to fight. The real war was about to begin, and Jake wondered if humanity had just made the biggest mistake in its history, or the only choice that would keep them free. Either way, there was no going back now. Admiral Nicole Grant watched the construction yards from her office window. Hundreds of ships were being built simultaneously, their hulls glowing hot from the welding work. Earth had transformed into a war machine. Every factory, every resource, every person was focused on one goal: survival. 6 months, she said to Colonel Tyler Shaw, who stood beside her. 6 months until the Council Armada arrives. We're using that time well, Tyler replied. He was a special operations commander, the kind of man who won wars through cleverness rather than force. Every day we get stronger. Nicole turned from the window. Stronger won't be enough. Intelligence says they're bringing 3,000 ships. We have 400, maybe 500 if we push production. Then we don't fight them head-on, Tyler said with a slight smile. We fight them the way humans have always fought when outnumbered. That had been Earth's strategy from the beginning. Humanity couldn't match the Council's numbers or technology. But humanity had something the Council didn't: experience with real war. While the Council had enjoyed peace for millennia, humans had been perfecting the art of killing each other. Every dirty trick, every brutal tactic, every lesson learned from centuries of conflict was now being turned against the aliens. Dr. Megan Ross entered the office carrying a tablet. She led the weapons development program, and her team had been working without sleep for months. Admiral, I have an update on the mine deployment, she said. We've seeded 2,000 nuclear mines throughout the outer solar system. They're equipped with the stealth coating Colonel Shaw's team developed. The Council won't see them until it's too late. What's the yield? Nicole asked. Each mine carries a 50-megaton warhead. When the Council fleet enters the field, they'll lose at least 100 ships in the first wave. Tyler nodded approvingly. And the cyber package? Ready, Megan confirmed. Captain Kevin Drake's team has been studying the Council communication protocols. We can inject false data into their network, make them see things that aren't there, make them miss things that are. Kevin Drake had been a submarine commander before space warfare became humanity's priority. He understood stealth, patience, and striking from hiding. Now he led a fleet of small, quiet ships that could hide in asteroid fields and debris clouds. The Council fights like they're still at peace, Kevin had explained during a strategy meeting. They move in formation. They communicate openly. They follow rules. We're going to break every rule they have. The months passed quickly. Earth's preparations continued day and night. Children learned to recognize air raid sirens. Cities built massive underground shelters. Food and water were stockpiled. Everyone knew what was coming. Jake Morrison, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, commanded the entire human military. He spent his days planning, coordinating, and preparing for what military historians were already calling the most important battle in human history. If we lose, he told his senior staff, humanity ends. The Council will either destroy us or enslave us. There's no third option. Then we don't lose, Nicole said simply. The Council Armada arrived on schedule. 3,000 ships appeared at the edge of the solar system, in a formation so large it stretched across millions of kilometers. Each ship was bigger and more advanced than anything humanity could build. Their shields could withstand incredible punishment. Their weapons could vaporize asteroids, but they had weaknesses. They're broadcasting again, Amy Carter reported from the communication station. The same message as before. Surrender or be destroyed. Ignore it, Jake ordered. Execute Phase 1. The nuclear mines activated. 2,000 invisible bombs suddenly became visible as they detonated simultaneously. The Council fleet's leading edge vanished in a wall of nuclear fire. Ships dissolved into atoms. The beautiful formation shattered. Phase 1 successful, Ryan Blake reported. Estimated enemy casualties: 137 ships destroyed. But the Council fleet kept coming. 3,000 ships had become less than 3,000. but they still vastly outnumbered humanity. Phase 2, Jake ordered. Release the drones. 10,000 small drones launched from hidden positions throughout the solar system. Each one carried enough explosives to cripple a council ship. They were too small for the council's sensors to track individually, and there were too many to shoot down. The drones swarmed the council fleet like angry insects. They crashed into engines, bridges, and weapon systems. More council ships fell, their elegant designs torn apart by simple suicide weapons. They're adapting, Nicole reported from her command ship. Deploying point defense systems. The drones are becoming less effective. Then we move to Phase 3, Jake said. Captain Drake, you're up. Kevin and his stealth fleet had been hiding in the asteroid belt for days, waiting for this moment. Now they struck. His ships appeared behind the council formation, their weapons already firing. They hit supply ships, command vessels, and communication relays. Then they vanished back into the debris fields before the council could respond. Hit and run, Kevin explained to his pilots. We're sharks in dark water. We bite and disappear, make them afraid of every shadow. The council fleet tried to adapt. They tightened their formation. They increased their sensor sweeps. They changed their communication frequencies, but nothing worked. The humans seemed to anticipate every move. That was because they did. Megan's cyber warfare team had successfully infiltrated the council network. They could read enemy communications in real time. They could plant false information. They could make council ships see threats that didn't exist and miss threats that did. They're fracturing, Tyler Shaw reported after 2 months of constant warfare. Different species are blaming each other for the losses. Some want to retreat, others want to push forward. They're not unified anymore. The council had expected to arrive at Earth and find a terrified population ready to surrender. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a grinding war of attrition they didn't understand. Their ships were superior, but human tactics were unpredictable. Their weapons were powerful, but humans didn't fight fair. Human ships would pretend to be disabled, then explode when council vessels came close. Human forces would retreat, leading council ships into prepared ambushes. Human commanders would offer false surrenders, then attack during the ceasefire. This is barbaric, one council transmission said. Amy translated it for Jake. They fight without honor, without rules. They're animals. Honor doesn't keep you alive, Jake replied coldly. Rules don't protect your people. They're learning that the hard way. After 3 months of combat, the council armada had lost over 1,000 ships. They had barely reached Mars. Earth remained untouched. The cost to humanity had been high. 200 ships destroyed and thousands of casualties. But they were still fighting. The council fleet commander, a being named Vortek, finally requested a ceasefire. He wanted to negotiate. What do you think? Nicole asked Jake. I think he's stalling while he waits for reinforcements, Jake said. But we'll talk. Buy ourselves some time, too. The negotiation took place over video link. Vortek appeared on the screen, a massive reptilian creature with intelligent eyes. He looked exhausted. You have fought well, Vortek said through the translator. Better than we expected. But you cannot win. We have more ships, more resources. Eventually you will fall. Maybe, Jake agreed. But how many more ships will you lose first? How many more of your people will die? Is teaching us a lesson worth that cost? Vortek was silent for a long moment. What do you want? Leave, Jake said simply. Go back to your council. Tell them that humanity wants to be left alone. We don't want your territory. We don't want to join your council. We just want to exist in peace. You attacked us, Vortek said. You destroyed our enforcement fleet. You came to disable our infrastructure, Jake countered. You came to force us into submission. We defended ourselves. That's all we've ever done. The negotiation broke down. Vortek couldn't accept humanity's terms without council approval, and the council refused to negotiate with what they called terrorists. The fighting continued for another month. Then something changed. A council supply convoy was intercepted and destroyed. Without fuel and ammunition, the frontline council ships were stranded. They tried to retreat, but Kevin's stealth fleet hunted them down. They're running, Ryan reported with disbelief. The entire council fleet is withdrawing. Jake watched the sensors as 3,000 ships became 2,000, then 1,500. The Grand Armada that was supposed to crush humanity was limping away, shattered and broken. Do we pursue? Nicole asked. Jake thought about it. They could chase the council fleet, inflict more damage, but his people were exhausted. His ships were damaged. And he had made his point. Let them go, he said finally. They came here to teach us a lesson. I think we taught them instead. As the council ships vanished into deep space, Earth celebrated. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had survived. But Jake didn't celebrate. He stood alone on the bridge and wondered what came next. The council would not forgive this defeat. They would come again in greater numbers, unless humanity struck first. President Brandon Mitchell stood before the emergency session of Earth's government and prepared to make the most important speech of his life. The war room was packed with representatives from every nation, every colony, every military branch. They were waiting for his decision. We won the battle, Brandon began, his voice steady despite the weight on his shoulders. The council fleet is gone. Earth is safe. For now. He paused and looked around the room. The question is, what do we do next? Secretary Kate Phillips spoke first. We fortify our position. Build more ships. Strengthen our defenses. Make sure they can never threaten us again. And then wait for them to come back? Commander Ashley Morgan asked. She was the head of military intelligence and her reports had been clear. The council has thousands of worlds, millions of ships. They'll rebuild and return probably within 5 years. Next time with overwhelming force, so what's the alternative? Kate demanded. We can't fight the entire galaxy. No, Brandon said quietly, but we can make sure they're too afraid to fight us. The room erupted in arguments. Some said humanity should negotiate from a position of strength. Others said they should prepare for a long war. But Brandon had already made his decision. We go on the offensive, he announced. We strike now while they're weak and disorganized. We hit their colonies, their infrastructure, their confidence. We show them that attacking Earth has consequences. Jake Morrison was called to present the military assessment. He pulled up a star map showing council territory. Intelligence has identified 12 colony worlds with minimal defenses, Jake explained. These colonies provide food, resources, and manufacturing for the council. More importantly, they're symbolic. The council has promised its member species protection. If we can take these worlds without resistance, we prove that promise is empty. You want us to become invaders? Kate asked, her voice shocked. We just fought to defend our freedom. Now you want us to take away others' freedom? I want us to survive, Jake replied firmly. And the only way we survive is if the council is too divided and afraid to attack us again. These colonies are the key to that. Ashley Morgan added her analysis. The council species have no concept of ground warfare. They've had peace for so long they don't even have armies. Their colonies are protected only by orbital defenses, and those are designed to stop space pirates, not military invasions. Brandon made the final call. We proceed with Operation Overlord, simultaneous strikes on 12 council colonies. The goals are simple. Secure the worlds, protect the civilians, and prove that the council can't defend its own people. Captain Lauren Hayes commanded the 1st Marine Battalion to land on an alien world. The planet was called Serenity by its inhabitants, a species of amphibious beings who had joined the council 800 years ago. They had never seen war. Lauren's dropships descended through the atmosphere unopposed. The orbital defenses had been destroyed in the first minutes of the attack by Kevin Drake's stealth fleet. Now 2,000 human Marines were landing in the capital city. Remember, Lauren told her troops over the radio, these are civilians. We're not here to hurt them. We're here to show them their council can't protect them. The landing zone was a public park in the center of the city. Thousands of aliens watched in terror as the human ships touched down. Lauren stepped out first, her rifle ready but pointed down. A local official approached slowly, his amphibious body trembling. Through a translator device, he spoke. Why are you doing this? We have done nothing to you. Your council attacked Earth, Lauren replied. We're here to make sure it doesn't happen again. We're not here to harm anyone, but this world is now under human protection. The official looked confused. Protection? From what? From the council that abandoned you, Lauren said. Where are your defenses, your army? You have none because the council promised to protect you, but they couldn't even protect themselves. Within 6 hours, Serenity was under human control. There had been no fighting. The aliens had simply surrendered, too shocked and afraid to resist. Similar scenes played out on 11 other worlds. By the end of the first week, humanity controlled 12 planets without firing a shot at civilians. But controlling them was just the beginning. Earth needed these worlds to provide resources, to be self-sustaining. Brandon appointed Amy Carter as the first governor of an occupied world. She had learned council languages and customs during the war. Now she had to make peace. "This is strange," Amy told Jake during a video call from Serenity. "The civilians here aren't angry. They're not resisting. Some of them actually seem relieved." "Relieved?" Jake asked. "The council wasn't as perfect as they claimed," Amy explained. "These colonies paid enormous taxes. They had to follow strict rules. They couldn't govern themselves. Now that we're here, some of them are asking if they can join Earth instead." This pattern repeated across all 12 colonies. The council species weren't united by love or loyalty. They were held together by fear and habit. Without the council's direct presence, old grievances surfaced. Lieutenant Matt Carson became humanity's most celebrated pilot during this period. He led fighter squadrons in dozens of battles against council defensive fleets. His tactics were studied by military academies even as they were being used in combat. "The key is speed," Matt explained to new pilots. "Council ships are bigger and more powerful, but they're slow. We hit them before they can react. Then we're gone before they can return fire. It's like fighting elephants with mosquitoes." The war continued for a full year. Human forces pushed deeper into council territory. Some species fought back fiercely. Others surrendered immediately. A few even requested human protection from their former council allies. Ashley Morgan's intelligence network discovered something crucial. The council was fracturing. Different species blamed each other for the defeats. Ancient territorial disputes were reigniting. The perfect peace of 3,000 years was falling apart. They held it together through intimidation, Ashley explained to Brandon. The council maintained order by making everyone afraid of what would happen if they left. But now they can't even protect themselves. The whole structure is collapsing. By the end of the first year, humanity controlled 40 star systems. Human technology had advanced rapidly by reverse engineering captured council equipment. Human ships now had shields, advanced weapons, and faster engines. The gap between human and council technology was closing. More importantly, humanity had proven something important. The council wasn't invincible. Their ships could be destroyed. Their colonies could be taken. Their authority could be challenged. Some council species began sending secret messages to Earth. They wanted to negotiate separate peace agreements. They wanted protection from both the council and other species. They wanted what humanity offered, the freedom to choose their own path. "We're becoming an empire," Kate warned Brandon during a cabinet meeting. "We said we were fighting for freedom, but now we're conquering worlds." "We're offering protection," Brandon countered. "The difference is that species can leave if they want. We're not holding them prisoner like the council did." "Not yet," Kate said darkly. Jake understood her concern. He had seen how power could corrupt, how good intentions could lead to terrible outcomes, but he also understood that the galaxy was changing, and humanity had to change with it or die. "We can't go back to the way things were," he told his senior staff. "The council knows we exist now. They know we're dangerous. If we pull back to Earth and try to hide, they'll eventually rebuild and destroy us. Our only choice is to keep pushing forward until they have no choice but to accept us." Lieutenant Matt Carson summed it up during an interview with a war correspondent. "We didn't start this fight. We just wanted to explore the stars. But the council tried to force us into submission, and we couldn't allow that. Now we're doing what we've always done throughout history. We're surviving, and if that means conquering the galaxy to protect ourselves, then that's what we'll do." The occupied worlds were different under human rule. Some thrived with new freedom and opportunities. Others struggled with the change. Lauren Hayes worked to train local security forces to help them defend themselves rather than relying on others. "We're not staying here forever," she told the aliens. "Eventually you'll need to protect yourselves. We're teaching you how." It was a strange kind of conquest. Humanity wasn't exploiting the colonies or enslaving the populations. They were integrating them, protecting them, and slowly transforming them into allies rather than subjects. But not everyone saw it that way. Some council species saw humanity as a worse threat than anything they had faced before. These species formed a coalition to fight back, determined to stop human expansion at any cost. The war was far from over. But humanity had proven something vital. They could not only survive but thrive among the stars. The question was whether they would remain the defenders they claimed to be or become the conquerors everyone feared. 5 years had passed since first contact. Fleet Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the holographic display. showing human-controlled space. 1/3 of the galaxy now flew Earth's banner. The transformation was almost unbelievable. "Report from the outer colonies," Ryan Blake said, handing him a tablet. "Production is up 20%. The integration programs are working." Jake scrolled through the data. Former council colonies were now thriving under the Terran Accord, the new government structure humanity had created. It wasn't the old council system of forced compliance, but it wasn't pure freedom either. It was something in between. "Any resistance?" Jake asked. "Less every month," Ryan replied. "Most species prefer us to the council now. We're stricter in some ways, but fairer in others." The Terran Accord had simple rules. Every species had to contribute to collective defense. Every world had to follow basic laws protecting individual rights. But beyond that, species were free to govern themselves however they wanted. It was a practical approach born from humanity's own diverse history. Ambassador Kelly Chen had become the face of human diplomacy. She traveled from world to world, negotiating with species who wanted to join the Accord voluntarily. Her job had become easier over time as word spread about the benefits of human protection. "They're scared," Kelly explained during a council meeting. "The galaxy is chaotic now. The old council is fractured. There are border disputes, piracy, and small wars everywhere. Species that refused to join us 2 years ago are begging for protection now." Governor Amy Carter managed 3 worlds now. She had become an expert at helping alien species adjust to human methods. Her approach was always the same: teach them to defend themselves, give them real autonomy, but make clear that certain standards had to be maintained. "The Serenity Colony is thriving," Amy reported. "They've built their own defense force. They're manufacturing goods for trade. They even requested permission to send students to Earth universities." "Permission granted," Brandon Mitchell said. He was still president, though his role had evolved. He wasn't just leading Earth anymore. He was leading a galactic power, but not everyone was happy with the new order. Senator Chris Hamilton, the former general, had become one of the Accord's loudest critics. "We're becoming what we fought against," Chris argued during a heated debate. "The council forced species to obey. Now we're doing the same thing, just with prettier words." "No," Brandon countered. "The council demanded submission. We demand cooperation. Species can leave the Accord if they want. 3 have done so already." "And what happened to them?" Chris asked pointedly. Brandon hesitated. The truth was uncomfortable. The 3 species that left the Accord had been attacked by the remnants of the council within months. 2 had been reconquered. 1 had been destroyed completely. The galaxy had become dangerous, and protection came with a price. "The universe isn't fair," Brandon finally said. "We didn't make it this way. But we're trying to create something better than what existed before." The old Galactic Council still existed, but it was a shadow of its former self. Only 15 species remained loyal to it. They operated from a fortified sector of space, constantly preparing for what they called the Reconquest. Vortek, the Council fleet commander who had retreated from Earth, was now the Council's military leader. He had learned from his defeats and was building a new kind of force, one designed specifically to fight humans. Intelligence reports that Vortek is training his forces in guerrilla warfare, Ashley Morgan informed Jake. "He studied our tactics. He's adapting." "Good," Jake said, surprising her. "That means they're learning. Maybe eventually they'll realize that fighting us is pointless and we can actually talk." But talk was still far off. Small skirmishes happened constantly along the border between Accord and Council space. Neither side wanted full war, but neither would back down. Captain Lauren Hayes had been promoted to general and now commanded all ground forces in the Accord. She had trained thousands of alien troops in human military tactics. Some of them had even become better fighters than human soldiers. "They learn fast," Lauren told Jake during an inspection tour. "Give them proper training and equipment and they're formidable." The Council wasted their potential by keeping them peaceful. Lieutenant Matt Carson was now a colonel, training the next generation of pilots. His tactics had become standard doctrine across the Accord's military. He had written a manual called Fighting Against Superior Technology that was required reading for all officers. "The key is accepting that you're going to lose some battles," Matt explained to his students. "But every battle teaches you something. Every loss makes you better." The Council never learned that because they never lost. That's why we beat them. The economic benefits of the Accord were undeniable. Trade flourished between member worlds. Technology improved as different species shared knowledge. Standard of living increased across most colonies. Even species that had initially resisted human rule began to see the advantages. But there were problems too. Some species clashed with others over old grievances. Some human administrators abused their power. Some colonies felt they were paying too much for protection they didn't need. Amy Carter worked tirelessly to address these issues. She created councils where different species could resolve disputes without violence. She established oversight committees to prevent corruption. She tried to make the system fair, even though she knew it would never be perfect. "We're doing better than the council did," she told Jake during one of his visits. "But that's not saying much." "They set a very low bar," Jake agreed. "The Terran Accord wasn't perfect. It was messy, complicated, and sometimes unfair. But it was better than the alternatives. Either the council's forced peace or the chaos of no organization at all." Kelly Chen successfully negotiated the surrender of another 5 council species. They joined the Accord peacefully, bringing their technology and resources with them. The tide was turning. More species were choosing humanity over the old council. "Why?" Jake asked Kelly. "Why do they trust us?" "Because we're honest about what we are," Kelly replied. "We don't pretend to be perfect. We don't claim to have all the answers. We just promise to defend them and let them live their lives. After dealing with the council's impossible standards for centuries, that's refreshing." Then something happened that changed everything. Long-range sensors detected something approaching from dark space. Something massive. Something that wasn't from any known species. The sensor readings were brought to Jake immediately. He studied them with growing concern. Whatever was out there, it was big enough to dwarf anything humanity or the council had ever built. "What is it?" Ryan asked. "I don't know," Jake admitted, "but it's heading toward council space. And it's not slowing down." Emergency meetings were called. Both Accord and council leaders watched the approaching object with growing fear. It was moving faster than anything they had seen, and it was ignoring all communication attempts. "Could it be a weapon?" Brandon asked. "Or a ship," Ashley suggested. "A very, very large ship." When the object finally arrived, it wasn't alone. Hundreds of similar objects appeared across the galaxy's edge. They were ships, but their design was completely alien. Not council alien. Something else. Something that had been watching from the darkness. A message was broadcast on all frequencies. The language was unknown, but the tone was unmistakable. It was a challenge, or perhaps a threat. Jake stood on his bridge and felt a chill run down his spine. For 5 years, humanity had been fighting the council, conquering worlds, building an empire. They had thought they were becoming the strongest power in the galaxy. They had been wrong. "Translate that message," Jake ordered Amy. She worked for several minutes, using every linguistic tool available. Finally, she looked up with pale face. "It says, 'We have watched your expansion. We have judged your worthiness. Now we will test you. Prepare for evaluation.'" The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what this meant. While humanity had been fighting the council, something else had been watching. Something stronger. Something that viewed both humanity and the council as insignificant. Brandon's voice came through from Earth. "Admiral Morrison, what are your orders?" Jake looked at the display showing the unknown ships. Hundreds of them, each larger than any human vessel. He thought about all the battles humanity had fought, all the victories they had won, all the sacrifices they had made. "We prepare for war," Jake said quietly. Again, Ryan Blake stepped beside him. "Sir, we don't know anything about them. Their capabilities, their numbers, their weapons." "No," Jake agreed. "But we know about us. We know how to fight when we're outnumbered. We know how to survive against impossible odds. We've done it before. We'll do it again." He opened a channel to all Accord forces. "This is Admiral Morrison to all commands. An unknown force has entered our space. Their intentions are unclear but likely hostile. All ships are to prepare for combat operations. All colonies are to activate defense protocols. This is not a drill." He paused, then added, 5 years ago, the Council tried to force us into submission. We fought back and won. We built something new, something stronger. Now we face a new threat. Whatever these beings are, they'll learn the same lesson the Council learned. Humanity doesn't